Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of Pray on This. I'm your host, John Pray. And yes, I know today I'm looking rather casual, just wearing a t shirt that signifies my love of the Argos and the fact that they were the 109th Grey Cup champions. But it's also a prop. There was a point in time in this country where it didn't matter if you were a New Democrat, a liberal, or a conservative, you could have family or friends, have close personal relationships with someone, and your politics be as far to the left as they are to the right. Just like many fans of football teams or hockey teams for that matter. One of my closer friends, he's a season ticket holder of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I'm a season ticket holder of the Argos. We have very good natured ribbing of each other all year long. For 4 times a year, we really pick on each other when it's the two teams are playing against one another. And we even go so far as to I sit with him and his wife, myself and my wife, in Tim Hortons Field on the Labor Day Classic, and they sit with us on at least one of the games at BMO Field. Yes, there's heckling. Yes, there's a good-natured, real dislike of a football team that's a major rival and their fans. But it doesn't change the fact that Brian and I are still very good friends who get along on just about everything else. It used to kind of be like that in politics. I remember a time when in my own hunting group that one of the members of my group was a very much an NDP member. He at one time was an MPP for the NDP. He had sat as the provincial vice president of the NDP, knowing that I'm a staunch conservative. And we would have some really great discussions when we were at hunt camp. We'd actually find a lot of common ground, but we found a lot of where we differed was on personal rights and the fact that I don't feel that we need cradle to the grave welfare state where he did. Also, just the amount of money we pay in taxes. He was very much, we need to redistribute income. Where I am very much of, we pay too much in taxes now, and it would be much better if we didn't pay higher taxes than what we're currently paying. Take those off so you're not seeing the halos in my glasses. But something's really changed. I still have some good friends who are on the left that I can have some conversations with, but I myself have fallen victim to it, and not by my own choice. There are recent studies done by major universities, both in Canada and the United States, that show that the political discourse has become incredibly bad, very much polarized, almost like a civil war. 13% of progressive left-wing voters who self-identify as progressive, hardcore left-wing voters. So the AOC-style Democrat in the United States, the traditional NDP member in Canada, only 13% of them have a friend who would be considered right-wing. Only 20% of them have a friend who would be considered a centrist, someone who could vote liberal, vote conservative in the States, be a swing voter and vote either Democrat or Republican, depending on the issues. The liberals are not quite as bad. They're a little bit more balanced, but the number of liberals who will have a very left-wing friend, about 40% of liberals will have a very left-wing friend, and only about 30% of liberals will have a right-wing friend. But they will try to stay with people who think like themselves. And then conservatives, we're not much better off than the liberals. We are about 40 to 42% of us will have what would be a liberal centrist friend. We're much better than the left wing in terms of about 30% of us have friends who they consider to be very left and enjoy conversations with them. But this breaking down into armed, fortified camps on our politics, it's very bad for our society. It's causing major polarization, and it's really hurting the citizens in general. There used to be a time not that long ago that there would be bipartisan, or in this case, tripartisan accomplishments with all three parties identifying an issue and then coming to compromise and bringing forward the best bill to rectify the problem. But those days seem to be gone. I don't know what brought it on. There are those who argue that the pandemic and us being locked away in our homes, stuck on our screens, only saturating ourselves with points of view that we agree with, that's the reason for it. There are others that will say that our leaders have really started to play politics of division and that they've learned that wedge issue politics works. And so, therefore, it's how can I wedge the other side into the tightest position possible where it doesn't matter if they agree with me, they could lose their base. If they disagree with me, I can call them all kinds of vile names and point to people and say, they're scary. Don't vote for them. It's really doing a disservice to our country. It's really doing a disservice to friendships, and it's even hurting families. Not myself personally, but I have a very good close personal friend whose family has become completely fractured in the last 3 years due to the fact that some of the older members of the family are staunch conservative, and some of the younger members of the family, the grandchildren who are now in their 20s, are very much progressive left-wing voters. And my generation of Gen Xers, they're kind of caught in the middle. There's the ones who are kind of liberal, the ones that are kind of conservative, but it's got to the point where grandma and grandpa can't have Thanksgiving dinner anymore. This has to stop. I go on Twitter and I will just ask general questions. How can you still support Justin Trudeau after 8 years, multiple scandals, runaway spending, high taxes, inflation out of control, and now runaway interest rates, which is a ticking time bomb? And instead of people coming back and saying, well, they still have good policies, I like their policy on healthcare, or I like their policy on rehabilitation of criminals, I like what they're doing for seniors, I like what they're doing with the daycare. They're the only ones I trust with carbon, with climate change and taxing pollution. That's not what I get in return. What I get in return is some extreme vile hatred, questioning my intelligence. I have been informed in the last 2 weeks that I must be an uneducated, hateful, right wing, racist conservative because how dare I say anything about their great dear leader? It's not helpful. It's just polarized party politics. It's not voting in your best interest. It's not serving the country. The best example I have is this. For 10 years, I had a very good close personal friend. We talked about everything. But over the course and time of the pandemic, he became more and more hard left in his opinions. He started to chastise my opinions because I told him that as nice as your utopia sounds, it won't work. And when I would give good, valid reasons why, I would be told power to the people. And then it really came down to two major issues of us not getting along. The first was he basically yelled at me one day that capitalism is the worst thing that's ever happened, and that it abuses women because they only make 70% of what a man does. To which I said that gender pay gap, the way that you're calculating it, is 100% wrong. You're taking the average wages of all men and the average wages of all women in the workforce, and then you're subtracting one from the other and saying, oh, women only get paid 70 cents on the dollar. When I pointed out that it's illegal to pay two people doing the same job a different rate of pay regardless of gender, and that a lot of that was that women choose to work in different fields, some of which do not pay as well as some of the fields men work in. I was told that I was a liar and a capitalist shill. And then during the truckers' convoy, when he went very much into they're racists, they're Nazis, they're breaking the law, and when I pointed out to him that they're not breaking the law, they have every right to protest the same as BML did, or any native protest. I agreed that the truckers should have left Ottawa before they did, but I thought that the government was being very heavy-handed. I was told that I was a fucking neo-Nazi, no better than Hitler. Obviously, after that, we stopped conversing. But I miss my conversations with him. I miss being able to discuss something and hearing his point of view. And having what at one time was decent general discourse, like I have with my friend Brian about football. We used to be able to talk about an issue, and he would tell me why it's fantastic, and I would say, it sounds wonderful, but it costs too much. Or I would talk about how a tax cut is actually better for the economy than taking money and just giving it back to people. That why does the government have to act as a middleman? We used to actually talk about things, come to compromise. We don't do that anymore. And I'm not alone. The majority of my friends that I have left have all talked about family or friends that this too has happened to them. We need to stop this, ladies and gentlemen. We need to stop being played like puppets by puppet masters running parties. I hate to say it, but the Prime Minister of Canada is a master at playing identity politics, and he doesn't really solve any problems. He just points out where the problem is, tells you how to be afraid of it, and who would make it worse. And I'm the only person you can trust. I'm not saying that Mr. Poilievre is any much better, although he doesn't use that style of division in his politics. And I don't really know what Mr. Singh is up to at all, because what he does makes absolute no sense to me. But I think just you and I and everybody else out there, we need to start talking to one another again. Your neighbors are not your enemy. They're your fellow Canadians, and we all want to have a great life. This country used to be one of the greatest places on the planet to live. Right now, it doesn't feel like it. And we need to get back to what we once were, where you could support the NDP and I could support the Conservative Party of Canada. We could both identify a problem but have a different solution to it, and then talk and come up with what would be an excellent way to fix it that both sides could live with. Life was better when we did that. Life was better when we treated our politics like we treat our rooting for sports teams. At the end of the day, we're all just one big family, and we all should just try to get along. As always, that is Pray on This, and I wish you well until the next one.